Emily, and for today's video I wanted to talk about the underlying reasons why we develop eating disorders. My therapist says it's always more than just wanting to be thin and skinny and underweight. There's an underlying issue behind that. Before we get too deep into the video, I do want to just make a little disclaimer that I am not a professional. I am not a professional registered therapist, so please seek professional help if you are dealing with an eating disorder. And I will be talking about eating disorders and what triggered my eating disorder. So if you think that's triggering to you in any way, please don't watch this video. This video is intended to help people, not hurt. So if you feel like you might be triggered, please feel free to click off. We use eating disorder behaviors, or we develop an eating disorder to distract ourselves from the real issue and anxiety and emotions that we actually feel deep inside. We use distraction and we use obsessions on our body and calories and food and thinking about food and planning food and basically just our whole life revolving around food to distract us from how we really feel about something, or our emotions, or how we feel that day, or if we failed a test, or and PTSD related, anything that you find hard to cope with. But our minds use eating disorder behaviors as a way to cope and try to fix the feelings that we feel, because most of the times we don't know that's the real issue. We usually just go to our normal, comfortable behaviors of restricting and counting calories and body checking and body obsessions, because after all, if we don't really feel happy, we go to what society says we need to do to be happy, which society's version of happiness is somehow says if you're skinny, you're automatically happy. But we know, I talked about this in a previous video, how skinny does not equal happiness, and that's a false eating disorder belief. But that's the first thing we think of when we think of happiness, because that's what's in the magazines and that's what's glorified in magazines and on social media is weight loss, and somehow, and all like the weight loss TV programs say, I got so much happier when I lost X amount of weight or whatever. But like I said in my last video, that's only a quick buzz, and weight loss does not mean happiness in any way, because it will never be enough. You're gonna have to keep losing weight to keep getting that same happiness and buzz over again, because it's not genuine happiness. It's not gonna last. But we use our thinking and our focus on food and all of our brain power and energy on trying to be thin, somehow thinking that thinness will solve our emotional problems that we feel that we might not realize we're feeling. You might be feeling really anxious, but you don't know, because the first thought you use to cope with that anxious feeling is probably restriction. We go to our comfortable eating disorder behaviors when we have something going on that we don't know how to deal with, or it's hard to deal with, or it's uncomfortable to deal with. If you have anxiety or PTSD trigger pops up, or anything negative that your mind is finding really hard to deal with, you automatically go to your eating disorder behaviors, because that's what you use to cope and that's what you think is comfortable. And because of that, you might think it's just you wanting to be skinny and lose weight and be thin. Because, like I said, society thinks and tells us that we'll be happy when we lose weight, but that is not true. My underlying issue as to why I developed an eating disorder is kind of my OCD. I have OCD around my mom dying and then being incredibly lonely, and that is very anxiety provoking and it makes me really sad. So my whole life I used OCD behaviors like counting and cleaning and checking things, because I thought if I clean the kitchen for 1 hour and then make sure all the doors are locked, that somehow that's going to prevent my mom from dying. That's what my head told me, and that's what I believed. Because OCD is a control issue. You are trying to do rituals in order to feel controlled for an uncontrollable situation. I can't control if my mom dies. So I went to behaviors of OCD, like touching things and checking things and washing things, to give myself a relief from that anxiety, because I paired my mom won't die with washing the kitchen counter for 15 minutes. And I thought if I do those two things, I will control my mom from dying, but that's also not true. So I had those fears my whole life, and I was doing OCD my whole life over that. And then freshman year of college, my mom developed basal cell carcinoma. And at the time I didn't know it was just basal cell carcinoma, which is a type of skin cancer on the most outer layer of your skin. So it was removed very easily. But at the time I didn't know that. I thought she was gonna need chemotherapy, and she was gonna be like stage 4 skin cancer. I was very uneducated. So I thought I was gonna lose her, and I thought she was gonna die, and I completely broke down because I thought I was controlling my mom's fate and if she died or not by doing OCD rituals and compulsions and behaviors. But obviously I can't do that. And my head was very confused at the fact that me touching the sink handle 5 times in a row until it felt right wasn't going to prevent her from dying. So as you can imagine, I felt really, really uncontrolled. I felt like I lost my sense of control. I felt anxious. I felt depressed. I felt lonely. I felt isolated and mostly uncontrolled. So what did I do to find some sense of control in my life? I went to restricting my food intake. I went to controlling what food I ate. I went to controlling how much food I ate. I wanted a sense of control in my life back. And because I knew my OCD wasn't working, I thought I can control my food and what I eat, and getting my sense of control through eating disorder behaviors. My head could not deal with the tremendous anxiety and depression I was dealing with at the time. So I had no idea how to cope either. So whenever I did feel anxious or depressed and lonely, I went to restricting my food intake and over-exercising and obsessing about calories and bodies and Googling food facts and all of those eating disorder behaviors. At the time, I thought it was just the fact that I wanted to lose weight. My head started only thinking about how to lose weight, how to restrict, and etc. But the reality was, while this was all going on, my mom did get better, because it wasn't a very serious form of skin cancer. Like I said, it was just on the top, and she got it removed and she was fine. But I started to get absolutely terrified she was going to get it again. Terrified of that happening again and almost losing her again. That in order to deal with this immense anxiety I was dealing with, my head replaced the fear of losing my mom with the fear of gaining weight. I came to this realization in therapy. My therapist started off asking me what my biggest fears were and the events that led up to me restricting for the first time and having disordered thoughts around food, my body, and calories and all that. And we kind of identified all these little pieces. There was more, of course. I had more things going on that was just that, but my mom getting sick and me thinking I'm gonna lose her was absolutely the biggest trigger. For me, it was kind of a lot of little things kind of all happened cohesively at the same time, and then this one really big thing happened which completely pushed me over the edge. And I'd say my head completely broke down. I don't remember much that happened, honestly. But identifying the why I developed an eating disorder really helped me in recovery, because it really did get me to such a happier place actually dealing with the underlying issue I didn't want to deal with. Because I realized that, yeah, I can't control my mom dying, but why do I want to spend my whole life worrying about my mom dying when I can be spending time with my mom and enjoying the moments I have with my mom? Because my therapist is right, I can't control my mom dying, and restricting my food intake isn't going to help anyone. It's going to destroy me in the long run, but it's also going to destroy my relationship with my mom and everyone, because if I'm restricting, I don't have energy, I can't hang out with people, I can't concentrate on people, I can't focus, I don't want to spend time with people because my eating disorder personally made me very isolated, and I can't enjoy the time I do have with the people I love if I'm restricting and an eating disorder. So identifying the why for me was a huge turning point, and I really did a lot of hard work to get past this fear. And yeah, I still have fears about it, especially with the virus going on, but I learned I can't control everything, and I can't let things I can't control get to me. You most likely developed an eating disorder for another underlying reason than just wanting to be thin and skinny. ED behaviors are a coping mechanism for uncomfortable emotions, uncomfortable situations, past traumas. They are a coping mechanism. You go to those restricting behaviors or other eating disorder behaviors that make you feel better in the moment, but they're not gonna help you in the long run. Restricting is not gonna help you in the long run. It's going to destroy your body. It's going to destroy your health. And finding that underlying reason and fixing the underlying reason really has helped me. And I didn't even know at the time that it was more than just wanting to be thin. It really was my OCD issue. And once I fixed, or I'm in the process of fixing my OCD underlying issue, I find restricting isn't the first thing I think of anymore when I'm upset. A lot of hard work in therapy has taught me that if I'm upset about something, I need to go directly to the source of what's upsetting me. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it might be hard to face. But if you face it head on, it is so much better than restricting or using eating disorder behaviors. For example, I was really scared of my mom going to work. I am afraid she's gonna catch the virus, and that makes me really anxious, and that makes me feel really lonely because she's not around me 24/7 anymore, because we're not in lockdown anymore. And I started getting restricting thoughts and obsessing about my body, obsessing about food choices and calories. But as soon as I realized I started to want to use eating disorder behaviors, I didn't use any, I haven't restricted. But as soon as I started to realize and notice I wanted to use eating disorder behaviors, I knew it was more than just wanting to be thin and skinny. It was the fear of my mom catching the virus and possibly getting sick and possibly dying, and then me ending up lonely. And so I realized that in therapy, of course, and I talked to my mom about it. I told her my anxieties. I told her everything I was feeling, and she reassured me. that she was going to wear gloves, there's going to be a mask, there's only going to be a certain amount of people around her, there's going to be sanitizer at her dispense, and it was going to be okay. And we were going to get through this together. And I immediately felt better, and all my thoughts around wanting to restrict again and wanting to use eating disorder behaviors completely diminished. And I felt so much better, and my body image got better, and my happiness and joy came back, and I stopped fixating on food and food choices, because I went directly to the source of what was giving me anxiety, and I faced it head on, and that helped me not restrict. Eating disorders are very personal and individualized for everyone. We all have our own stories. We all have different bodies. We all have different paths. We all have different lives. For me, it was an underlying issue, and it was my OCD. It's obviously very different for everyone, and I'm just sharing my experience and what really helped me to maybe inspire someone else to maybe think about why they think they just want to be thin and skinny. Maybe it is an underlying issue, and I just really want to talk highly of therapy and therapists and how it works. Therapy is the best thing that has ever happened to me. I wouldn't trade it for the world, and I wouldn't trade recovery for the world. This has been the happiest part of my life. It's been the most eye-opening and insightful part of my life, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. So I really want to encourage everyone who's watching to please seek professional help. Please go to an eating disorder clinic. Please find a therapist, a nutritionist, and a doctor. You need a whole team behind you, because you deserve it, and you deserve recovery no matter what. So thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I really appreciate it. And if you ever need help, if you ever need anything, the link for my recovery Instagram is in the description below. Feel free to message me on advice or help. I can try as best as I can. And I appreciate you being here. You're meant to be on this earth. You are cared for, you are loved, and you have purpose, and you are going to change the world someday. Thank you for watching. Bye.